I'm running out of space. I'm gonna have to get more room every time I think I'm done. Another one just comes out. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Salutations, if I may. I got a book in the mailbox, and it is another addition to the collection from Stephen Graham Jones. Ever hear of him? If not, by all means, hear of him. Now, Stephen Graham Jones is an author that I have read. I've read 4 books from the author. I haven't read them all. I've got lots of stuff to read. I like to read lots of things, but I go back and I pick them up and I read them. And I've read 4 books of his, and after 4 books, I'll say I'm a fan. Again, I'm a fan of a lot of authors, but I'm a fan of Stephen Graham Jones, and I am now to the point, when a new book comes out, I will buy it as soon as I can. Now, he's got a new book that's out that's called I Was a Teenage Slasher. And I'm a book reader, but I'm also a book collector. And when it comes to collecting books, my opinion is that signed is better. I'll always go for the signed editions if they exist and if I can. And Barnes & Noble is a bookseller that frequently will have signed editions of books, especially Stephen Graham Jones' new trade hardcover books when they come out. They'll sell them in the stores and they'll sell them online. And I've got lots of Barnes & Noble bookstores in the state of Florida and places that I go and stuff like that. But I don't want to rely on the luck that I'll have when I show up at the store that I'll be able to still have a signed edition available when I'm there. So usually when I find out they're coming, I'll order them up front, pre-order it on Barnes & Noble's website. I'm not saying that's what you need to do. That's just what I do. I don't want to risk not being able to get one in the store that I go to. Who knows when I'm actually going to be at a Barnes & Noble. There's not one in the town that I live. They're just in other towns that I travel to for work or whatever the case may be. Well, I pre-ordered I Was a Teenage Slasher, and it is here, and I want to show you what it looks like when you buy a book from barnesandnoble.com or whatever they call their website. But here it is. It's hopefully it's the first edition, first print, signed hardcover copy of I Was a Teenage Slasher. I Was a Teenage Werewolf. I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. It's a slightly larger box than the book. And I typically am not happy with this type of shipping method. I like a bigger box, stuffed full of cushion and all that stuff. But there are some characteristics about the way this is shipped that does help to get my stuff to me in good condition. And that's just extra things here. A lot of times on the boxes in the mail, these corners will get bashed. And well, if the corners are hollow, well, then you're bashing air. So that is a good feature. But I want to open this up and see how luck held up with a friendly neighborhood mail lady and all of her co-workers along the way from Barnes & Noble's warehouse, whatever one they shipped it from, to my house, whatever one it arrived at. So the first issue is, how do you open this up? And there's a tab right here. I'm going to pull that tab and see how my luck holds out, or if my luck runs out. I want to pull this tab, and the tab didn't work so well. It just about ripped off. So I'll try the other side, see if I can get the rest of the story, as they say. And it went about halfway. So now it looks like I'm going to have to cut or just get physical and start tearing. Try to get it open. Just grab it and tear, ripping and tearing. That's how we get the work done. All right, we're almost there. So I got it open on one end, and you can see that there is a little bit of space, but this book slides around and bounces around. It leaves a little bit of room for damage in there. And let's see how it looks. You can look as I look. And man, a little bit of a rub there, slight right there, slight tear in the dust jacket, and that looks like it's about it. There's a sticker on the front of the dust jacket. I don't know if I like that stuff or not. On one hand, it does help to authenticate the signature. Barnes & Noble signed exclusive edition. I guess if they all come that way, it's tolerable. So I'm not complaining about it. Maybe it helps to authenticate it slightly. But what do we have? Great dust jacket artwork. I like it. It looks like it's a period piece, like going back in time a little bit, which is what these slasher books tend to be, throwbacks. And if you read Stephen Graham Jones, you'll know he's big into nostalgia, not always positively portraying the nostalgia, but he's big into the stuff from the 80s, and the slashers are notoriously very 80s, late 70s and 80s. And so I dig it, man. And this is list price was $29.99 USA. Now, to get it shipped to my house and all, it was $38.32. So I did pay the freight, paid extra. Could have got a little cheaper if I'd have bought it in the store. Maybe 7%, 6.5%, whatever the sales tax is, would have been added. But this guaranteed that I got a copy, and I like it. And there is the spine. That's what it'll look like on my shelf. They did a good job of making this dust jacket look good. And I was a teenage slasher. And I haven't read the book. It's brand new. But I will read the inside flap of the book, just so you and I both can have an idea of what we're getting ourselves into. La Mesa, Texas, July 1989. So I said 80s, and we just got in before the 80s were up. It's the summer before senior year for best friends Tolly Driver and Amber Dennison. They're not in the marching band. They're not in the FFA. They don't really count. Amber's the only native student in town. Tolly's only on the radar due to his father's recent death. This is all about the change. Bodies are going to be dropping fast in this small West Texas town. For a few unbearably hot days that will resonate through the decades and even get made into a TV movie, Tolly and Amber will be famous. Notorious even. Finally, everyone will know their names. This is Stephen Graham Jones x-raying the slasher genre, interrogating its motivations over the shoulder and in the voice of the killer itself. From a town he did some growing up in a year he was also 17. The kills will be poignant, the jokes will hurt, and the violence will be endearing. Everything's turned around for Tolly, for Amber, for all of La Mesa, Texas. Be happy you weren't there. Be happy you're only reading about it. So there we go. And I've read some slasher stuff from Stephen Graham Jones, and I dug it. That's why I'm in. So I'm a fan. That's why I buy this book. The very second that I saw it was available for sale, I bought it. So let's get done with that. Take this dust jacket off. First of all, let me stretch it out and show it to you. The back flap has a little bit about Stephen Graham Jones. And one thing that I recommend for folks that haven't read Stephen Graham Jones is to go on the YouTube or go on a podcast or something. Look him up. Listen to him. Watch him doing some interviews. Listen to the way he talks, the cadence, the words, the perspective. And now when you go back and read his books, it flows a lot better. It feels better. It fits better. You can listen to him talk. You can read his voice in the books. And when I did that, it really helped me to get into the stories. And I dig it. I'm a fan. So this is quarter-bound paper on paper. And the spine looks pretty cool. Like most trade editions, you're not getting a mind-boggling book. You're going to get a glued binding sometimes. You're going to get a hopefully a good-looking dust jacket artwork. But for a lot of collectors, the first edition, first print is the thing you want. And this would be the hardcover. And I'm going to check, first of all, to see if I've got a first edition, first print. How do I know? I don't know. How do I know? Well, here's how I know. A lot of times it works like this. We'll look right here on this page, and you look for a number line. And you find the number line here. It's a bunch of numbers, and you want to make sure the number line goes all the way down to 1. I have the number 1. And that will typically be how a book is designated as a first edition, first print. And I'm not the expert on any of this stuff, but essentially they're going to print these books. They go out and they print a batch of books. And when they get them all sold out, they'll print another batch. That second batch would be the second print. So first edition, second print. Those number lines will go all the way down to 2. There will not be a 1. 1 means first print. 2 means second print. Now, that's not always been the case for every publisher over history, but that's typically the way it works. And again, some publishers don't have number lines. They might say first printing for the first print. And in the second print, they might have a number line that goes to 2. So it's not always the same. But here is a signature page that has been added. This signed edition of I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones has been specially bound by the publisher. And there is the signature from the author. Stephen Graham Jones' signature. It looks like Stephen Graham Jones' signature. When people sign books, you never really know what you're going to get. And when you have 3 names, and they're all long names, except for Jones perhaps, you got to kind of shorten it. But anyway, signed is better. I'm glad to have a signed copy. It's on the reading list. The books, what got to be read, the TBR, it's on the list, and I need to get to it. There are a few Stephen Graham Jones books that are on my list that I need to read. And so, the ones that I have read, I read Mongrels. That was the first one I read. And I loved that book. That was my gateway to Stephen Graham Jones. The next book I read was The Only Good Indians. And that, for a lot of people, was the Stephen Graham Jones book. That's the one that said, this guy is the future and all that stuff. I liked it less. And then My Heart is a Chainsaw was one that kind of had mixed reviews. There were a lot of people out there that were saying it wasn't very good. And I read that book, and I read that book thinking, you know what, if I think this book sucks, I might give up on the author. I don't know. That's kind of what I was thinking, though. Fortunately, I thought that book was awesome. Fabulous. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars out of 5 stars. And then the next one was Don't Fear the Reaper, and I loved it too. I loved it almost as much as My Heart is a Chainsaw. And I've got to read now the final installment of that Indian Lake trilogy, and that is The Angel of Indian Lake. So Stephen Graham Jones books to be read on my list. Anyway, I can think of no more lies to tell. So thank you for your time. I do truly appreciate it. And c'est la vie, baby. Doo-doo.